Brett Sockled here. Just had a day with Catholic teachers here in Billings, Montana. I wanted to share a couple ideas that I learned from my interaction with the teachers. During the workshops the teachers are broken up into groups. I give them a series of sort of leading questions to think through their subject and then some very specific topics they might cover and how they might approach that from a Catholic point of view. And the conversations that happen in those small groups generate a lot of really cool ideas, and I wanted to just share two of them with you today. And just to let you know, I'm in the midst of building an online community where I'm going to be able to offer these kinds of workshops virtually to members. So if that's something you're interested in, keep your eyes posted here. I'll be sharing it wherever I share these kinds of videos. So the first one is a group of kindergarten teachers. And they had decided they wanted to think about social studies from a Catholic point of view. And they thought about, young people, we always tell them how they're made in God's image and how they're good and they're made good and all that kind of stuff, and to reaffirm that. And that was great, but I said, okay, but social studies is about living together as a community. So what would happen if we thought about the line from Genesis? God makes Adam, and then he's like, well, this isn't ideal. This guy shouldn't be alone, right? Now, a key principle on doing this in an elementary context is a lot of the stuff that's a little more theoretical, Catholic worldview stuff, that you would do in a theoretical way in high school. In elementary school, you need to give students an experience, or at least help them to reflect on an experience they've already had. Little people are very good philosophers, but they don't do it like philosophers. They don't do it in a theoretical mode, but they're really great at reflecting on their experience. So we got talking with the teachers, and they thought, you know what? Nobody's better at recognizing and understanding that it's not good to be alone than a kindergarten, right? They know what it's like to feel left out on the playground. They know what it's like to make a friend. And if they can reflect on their own experience of loneliness or friendship, they can understand the root of a Catholic approach to social studies, which is thinking about how we live in society, how we live together as groups, how we build actually communion, right? And then they can extend that into knowing that they're made for communion with one another, but also with God. And we even talked about how, sometimes we do better and sometimes we do worse with our friends, right? Humans are sinful, we make mistakes, and sometimes we hurt one another's feelings, but God is with us no matter what those mistakes are, and God always wants to be our friend, right? So that was a great example from kindergarten. The language teachers came to me, and every once in a while we do this, and a teacher will present to me like a lesson or a unit that they're supposed to teach on, and it's sort of like, what do you got for this one, Doc? Whether often it's a math thing, right? Fractions, what are you going to do with fractions? So this teacher said, well, in Spanish, I have to teach the present progressive tense. How are you going to teach the present progressive tense from a Catholic point of view? But one of the questions I ask is, what does it mean that humans are the ones doing this, right? So we said, okay, so humans use the present progressive. We don't know anything else that uses the present progressive. And humans, in fact, are the only things we know that use tenses at all. So let's think about what's a tense, right? What is a tense? Well, it's a way of situating whatever you're describing with your language in time relative to other times, right? Whether it's the past or the future, whether it was perfect or progressive, right? Ongoing, in a sense. We could talk about conditional, right? The fact that we use tenses means that we live in time and we reflect on what it means to be in a particular place in time relative to other places in time. And that's a unique experience, right? We don't know anything else that does that. Other animals don't reflect on time in that way. God, and this would be an interesting thing to explore, right? God doesn't need tenses because God lives in an eternal present. One of the things that's implied by tenses is the possibility of change, right? If you can talk about the past and you can reflect on the past, then you could do something different in the present or the future. And so we thought, you could give kids an experience of trying to talk without tenses. Give them one tense, maybe the present, and see how long they could have a conversation before they tripped up and used another tense. And reflect on what it means to need tenses to be able to describe human experience. and reflect on how human experience is unique in that way. And it means something like a kind of participation in history, right? Which is the arena of our freedom, which is unique to us. And God, at least originally, God is not in history, but then, of course, God in the incarnation joins us in history, right? And all this developed quite naturally out of thinking about what it means that human beings actually use tenses and need to use tenses. And we hoped, now we're going to have to put this to the test, we hope that if you had a conversation with your students about tenses and why we need them and what they imply about the human condition, that they wouldn't just seem like complicated things that you need to memorize, but there might be a little more sort of intrinsic buy-in, at least for some of the students, having thought a little more intentionally about what it is that we're doing when we speak in tenses. So I just wanted to share those couple ideas with you because they were exciting for me and give you a sense, kind of a taster of the kind of things that happen when you ask the questions we do in the workshops to think about what it means to approach every subject from a Catholic point of view. God bless.